Hey guys, it's Lady Catherine. I'm back with another video. As I promised in the last video, I am correcting a mistake here. This is the video, Witching on a Budget. This is the video that I was supposed to upload last night that I accidentally edited and made a duplicate of another video. So, with that being said, let's dive in. So, when you're first learning the craft, the path of a witch, you may not 100% be, what's the term, fully sure that this is going to be the path for you. So that's what this video is designed to do, is to give you a little bit of a resource as to what you can do that either requires time or very little money or even no money at all, just going to another place, right? So, you may not know that the path of the witch or the craft is even your cup of tea, and you don't want to find this out and have spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on tools, books, things like that. So, what can we do to minimize some of that cost when we're still trying to figure out if this is going to be the path for us? Or even if you know it's the path for you, how can we still minimize that cost? First we're going to talk about books, and then we'll go into tools themselves. And then I'm going to end the video with a couple of different ideas on getting your Book of Shadows or grimoire as well. I will be doing a whole video on the Book of Shadows and grimoire in a future video, so I'm going to just briefly cover some tips and things like that for it. So let's get started with books. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is go to a library, check out books on witchcraft, on magic, on herbs, whatever it may be. This costs you nothing. Library cards are free. You just have to make sure you get the books turned in on time, or else you do end up acquiring late fees. Alright? Another thing you can do if you're one of us, which is one of us who know that this path is for us, and you want to start purchasing books for your library, I'm going to tell you this. You have two options. Okay? I'm going to start with my favorite option, then we'll talk about the other option, and then I'll tell you the method I use for filtering some of this out. Okay? So, first option is you can check on Kindle. You can check on Kindle, see, because I know they have some books that are like $2.99. They also have some free books. They also have, just in general, they have some cheap books that can get you started, and you're saving money. You save money by looking for those cheaper books. They may not be big name authors like, let's say, Scott Cunningham or Christopher Penczak, but they'll get you started. Alright? Definitely, if you're one of those people, you can read reviews or watch review videos here on YouTube and kind of get a feel for each book, what are pros and what are cons from others that have read the book. Or what I'm going to tell you is take every book with a grain of salt, read it, take what resonates with you out of it, and then leave the rest for somebody else. Alright? The next thing you can also do is go to a used bookstore. Used bookstores are amazing. I frequent them as much as I can. I love going into used bookstores. I have been in some that have so many books that they actually have them sitting on the floor. The shelves are full. So you'll just have to find where that witchcraft section is. Some are more organized than others, but I always like the idea of rummaging through books, like shelves of books on the craft, and finding maybe that one or two golden gems and picking them out. Alright, now here's my method that I use. Anytime I go into a used bookstore, I always have Amazon pulled up. Alright, because I love to put books on my Kindle so that way I can carry them with me, whether I go to work so I can read them on my break, or whether I go to the park, or where I'm sitting in the car waiting for my wife to get out of a doctor's appointment. I have access to hundreds of books on my Kindle, The reading app is free, just so you guys know, and I actually have it on my phone, my tablet, and my laptop. And everything syncs with each other. You may just have to re-download the same book, but let's say I'm 50% into the book, it syncs to my Amazon account like that, and then if I download it to my, let's say my laptop, I download the book so I can read it on my laptop, it'll actually take me to where I'm at in that book, and the same with my tablet. Alright? So anyway, back to my thing. I will always scan in Amazon the barcode of each book to see if it is on Kindle. Now another thing I look at is it cheaper in list price or is it cheaper in Kindle price? Because if it's cheaper for Kindle, I will buy it. I won't buy it, but I'll add it to my wish list. And then I'll buy it later on when I have the extra money to do so. Or I will buy it right then and there depending on if I'm in need of a new book to read or not. Or if it's not, then what I'll do is I'll actually buy the physical copy, and then I'll put the other book on my put the Kindle book on my wish list and watch as the price will drop. Some authors will actually drop the price of their books, and one of them that I have on my Kindle right now has already dropped 36% since I put it on my wish list. It's still a little too expensive for my taste, so I'm continuing to watch as the price drops. Alright, so that's how I do it. Everybody can do it differently. I'm not opposed to it. I have physical books in my library, and then I have my Kindle library filled with books as well. So I've got books everywhere, guys. It also helps to save space if you don't have a lot of space to store a lot of books as well. Moving on to tools. This one's easy. You can repurpose things that are in your house. Look in your house. If you look in your kitchen for, let's say, a bowline that is going to be cutting things. Look in your house. What do you have? Maybe you have an old chef knife or an old knife in general that isn't hardly ever used anymore. Instead of throwing it away, repurpose it, cleanse it, bless it, charge it, and use it as a bowline or even an athame at that point. My first athame was actually a butter knife, believe it or not. My first bowline was an old pair of scissors. So you just get a little creative, see what's at your house, and see what you can use. This also leads me into repurposing, which you can go to places like Goodwill, Red Rocks, pretty much any thrift store. Get a little creative. You see a bowl that you really like. You're looking for something to burn in, like a cauldron. Maybe you find that cast iron bowl. Use that bowl to burn in. You know, just get a little inventive and think a little bit outside the box. Not to mention it's also cheaper because you can find things a lot cheaper at a Goodwill. My first mortar and pestle was $1.39 at Goodwill, and I used the living daylights out of it because I like to make almost every herbal incense that I can imagine that I'll need. Okay, so you just go to the thrift stores, see what you can find there, repurpose, get a little creative with it as well. Alright? Ooh, sorry. And last but not least, make the tools that you can. Everybody can make a wand. It could be as simple or as elaborate as you want it to be. Alright? If you want crystals to dangle from it and make little clinking noises, go for it, girlfriend. This is your wand. Nobody can tell you what you can or cannot do with it. So definitely see what you have, what you can make, what you have around the house. And of course, if you have to buy some tools, that's fine, but go to a thrift store and get inventive, get creative, think outside the box, and repurpose what you find. Alright? Moving on to the final part of this video is the Book of Shadows or Grimoire. Every witch has some kind of record, magical record keeping, and then there's some witches that really don't. It's all up here. I'm sorry, I don't have the brain capacity to remember every single spell that I have, every single ritual, all the notes that I have. So I do have a grimoire. I prefer the term grimoire to Book of Shadows. To me, Book of Shadows is more of a Wiccan concept. Just the title is. I don't know why I have that connotation, but I do. So instead, I have opted for the term grimoire. So anyway, there are methods, there are means at your disposal that are free that you can use, as well as some that are inexpensive. So let's start with the free ones. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this on a computer, or even on a phone, you have access to some kind of word processing program, whether it may be Word, LibreOffice, OpenOffice, Google Docs, whatever it may be. Start by creating a folder, title it Book of Shadows or Grimoire, then go in and you can get as organized or as non-organized as possible with that. Then take each document, like each notes, all your notes, type them up, save them into that folder. You're creating a grimoire there. Alright, or you can do one document, title it Grimoire, Book of Shadows, whatever, and then have a table of contents that updates with each new entry. That is fine as well. I've done that method, but you really have to look up how to do the table of contents. And things are going to get shifted as you're adding things, because that table of contents is going to push things down as well. So, that's one method. It is free. Alright, all you have to do is make sure you have plenty of storage to store this document. Later on, if you want to, we'll get to that later on, okay? We'll come back to this a little later on in the video as well. The next thing you can do is look and see what books, what blank notebooks, blank art journals, whatever it may be you have around the house, and start by using one of those. When I first started, I had a little, believe it or not, it was a Hannah Montana spiral notebook laying around, and that's where I started my grimoire. Okay? But as I got more serious and more into my path, I knew it was the path for me. I went out and I actually got a few inexpensive supplies, and then I started moving everything over, and then I finally digitalized everything as of last year, because there's just so much of it. So anyway, those are the free methods. The next one, moving on to the stuff that are inexpensive, is with your Book of Shadows, or Grimoire as digital, you can actually buy a binder and maybe some page protectors. If not, then you get the little hole reinforcement things. I don't know what they're called. They're just little circles you put over the holes on paper, and it's supposed to reinforce them so they're less likely to rip out. I opt for page protectors. It's just a personal thing, and you may want to get some tabs too. All in all, I think the binder, the tabs, and the page protectors, I think they all cost me about $5. All right, and then print all your documents and put them in your binder, in those page protectors. All right, you can do 2 pages per protector, one front, one back, so then that way when you flip, you don't have white page at the back. You actually flip and you have something else, or you have a continuation of the current document. Okay. Now, the biggest cost here is again going to be page protectors, tabs, and then if you have to buy a new binder, like a bigger binder or whatever, and then you're gonna have to do ink and paper. Alright, but ink and paper, you can print quite a bit on one ink cartridge if you do it in black, and you do it on, I think it's called Fast Draft, or they may have changed the name of it now, but it actually uses it uses a minuscule amount of ink compared to if you put it on high quality. Okay, so that's that method, and like I said, the cost is going to be broken up. It's not going to be all at once. You may need a new binder now, like a thicker binder now, and then 3 or 4 months later you may need some more dividers and page protectors. So the cost is split up, and then maybe a month from then you need a new ink cartridge and more paper. So it's kind of broken up with that one. Now the next thing you can do is, if you don't have anything lying around the house that you can use, you can actually go out and buy really cheap composition notebooks. I think they're 88 cents at Walmart right now. You can also get really cheap spiral bound notebooks if you really want to go with a journal-y type book. You can get those relatively cheap. Art books are relatively cheap as well. Walmart's really good for that. That's usually where I buy everything because it's usually the cheapest. But definitely my go-to method is saving and having a digital version. I just have so much stuff in it. It's just simpler than trying to write it all down or print it all. It's just easier, and then I can upload it to my Google Drive and actually access it right here on my cell phone. So then that way it saves space, and when I add something new to it, when I do my updating, it automatically will update on my phone as well. So those are just my real quick witching on a budget tips. It's not real quick because it's like almost a 16-minute video, but still, these are just my witching on a budget tips. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up as well, if you will, on this video. And until next time, guys, namaste.